Tonight we're going to be doing Sata Nama. Each time you close a mudra by joining the thumb with a finger, your ego seals its effect in your consciousness. Visualize or feel each individual sound come in the crown chakra at the top of the head, down through the middle of the head, and out to infinity through the third eye. This is very important and must be done with each sound. It is an essential part of the cleansing process. So we're going to begin. I know some people can't just sit still and just go right into meditation. And something like this, you're connecting to the cosmic healing process by doing it. And you can only benefit by doing it. Okay. Sata Nama, Sata Nama, Sata
Good evening, everyone. I can hear that Norma has already led you in a meditation. That is a very good technique, by the way. And you can use that anytime that you feel challenged on the path of life, not just for a sitting meditation, but when something is taking place that is causing you concern. You can start that particular meditation that she's teaching tonight. That's an excellent technique. Once upon a time, way back when, we were in the Spruce Street Church, which was somewhat smaller than this. I think it seated maybe 250 people, but there was only one parking space that went with the church. And yet we never had a problem. It was one of those miracle phenomena. People found parking spaces everywhere. We filled that church for 2, sometimes 3 Sunday services. But attending that church was a young mother who brought her 7-year-old son with her every Sunday. He didn't go to the Sunday school. He stayed and listened to my talk. And one Sunday when I had finished the talk and people would come up to the altar and were greeting me, the young boy came up and said, "Do you think you'll ever run out of words?" In my mind, I was thinking all along the way, what a devoted kid this is, listening to my insightful talks. But really, it must have been somewhat disturbing for him to listen to this verbiage every Sunday. So that was rather a medium light awakening for me. And this evening, I've just about run out of words. So I have to ask you to indulge me. This will not be the normal type of thing that I do that is plotted. I don't memorize what I do, but I do have an outline in my mind and some quotes that I'll use to try to make it interesting. But tonight I'm going to start, though, reading you a story, a piece of a story from the novel that I have written. And I wrote this novel and then couldn't really get behind advertising it or promoting it because everybody at that time everybody in my family saying, Jack, you've got to find the time to write your memoirs. You have to write your memoirs, your true story. And so I kind of left off this novel and was involved in writing Escape to Another Reality. But there is in this novel, this is a novel of extraordinary differences. And in this novel, there is a paralyzed ex-priest who has given up the faith in the Catholic Church altogether. And he's been paralyzed his whole life. And an alchemist gives him the opportunity to gain a brand new young man's body if he's willing to kill the soul of that young man. And while he's always, his whole life, wanted to be able to walk and get out of that wheelchair, he is really on the horns of this temptation. And he is struggling with it within himself. This is a section of that paralyzed priest's struggle. The Call to Suffering was the title of one of the most memorable sermons the ex-priest ever heard. It was given at the Catholic seminary by Tully Bhakti, an elderly Buddhist monk with a long white beard. He was born in America and gave his sermon in Christian terminology. Ken bought the CD after the talk. He listened to it often. Ken is the paralyzed priest. Ken bought the CD after the talk. He listened to it often as a student because it brought him rare moments of peace, even though there were sections in it he didn't fully understand. He felt compelled to listen to it, so he dug it out of his collection of religious CDs and played it. He thought it might bring him the solace it used to so many years ago. I am an old man, the Buddhist monk began. Perhaps you've noticed as he stroked his white beard and smiled. I too was young once. Before I was a monk, I also had a loving wife who died in my arms. She was young and beautiful, too young to die. It brought such pain to me that I wanted to join her in death. I cried out, "Where is God in such tragedies as this?" But there was no answer. No answer came to my mind. No sorrow was lifted from my heart. Then that same day, a little girl, a brownie scout, came to my door selling cookies. She was just so delightful, with her cute smile and big innocent eyes, like the eyes of a fawn. You see, she was practically brand new, a brand new person on earth. I thought maybe the cruelty of life would not break her. Maybe someday she will alleviate some suffering in our world. Maybe she will become a doctor or a teacher or a wonderful wife. Through her, God may be able to alleviate some of the suffering in our world. Maybe that's all that God can do. Just bring his children into the world, children who grow up to alleviate some suffering. Not all suffering. Even Jesus couldn't do that, or possibly wouldn't. The truth which alone can heal our lives and our world is the revelation that mankind chooses to create suffering. Did I hear some groans out there in the audience? Is it too harsh a truth to own up to? Mankind suffers at his own hand because he chooses to be self-serving instead of life-serving. Until we awaken and love our neighbors as we love ourselves, we are left to our own self-imposed suffering. Jesus didn't heal everyone and couldn't or wouldn't heal the world that we made, the world that we made sick. And it's up to us to heal it, to alleviate suffering wherever we can. I think that is one of the basic truths in this novel, although it is a suspense story and a really different love story. But I think it's one of the salient truths being related in this novel, that we are born to alleviate suffering. And we grow up in a world where that's not necessarily part of our teaching or training. We grow up in a world where naturally we become personally self-centered. And it seems to us that the best of life goes to those who are extremely self-centered and do whatever they can to gain advantages, regardless of the suffering they may cause in the process of doing that. So we are left on the horns of a dilemma ourselves, because it's necessary for us, if we're ever going to come to a place where we are fulfilling the will of our Creator, which is that we are here to alleviate suffering wherever we can, we will have to recognize that life as it exists in the self-serving mindset does not produce fulfillment, happiness, or peace, because our very nature, in the image and likeness of God, our core nature, is not that. Our core nature is love, because God is love. And for many people, it takes a long time to recognize that the world that is involved in its self-centered process of getting from the world is never going to bring what it is you are really seeking. Because what we are seeking, every single one of us, whether we know it or not, is the fulfillment of love. Until we can find ourselves there, recognizing that, and willing to surrender the egocentric definition of life, we will not feel the peace and the joy. We will not feel the happiness that comes with fulfilling the divine nature of God which is within us. And this particular novel pits that whole concept against so many strange and different things. But for us, we have one opportunity after another to alleviate suffering. And we don't know how to do it, really. It's not by imposing our personal will upon anybody else. It is upon carrying the presence of God as love with us, so that we may not say a great many things to people. But if we bring the awareness of the presence of God, if we bring that joy and love wherever we go, it's felt, it heals, it spreads out, it affects the collective consciousness of humanity. And that is what our calling actually is. That is how we alleviate suffering. There may be many opportunities on the path that we follow in which we can alleviate some suffering. We can give a helping hand, or we can go to help some charity, or we can help some person, or we can just alleviate some suffering on the path that has to do with healing the world. Or we might even find ourselves in a situation where we can bring the love of God to bear in the minds of people that have no regard for the majesty and the miracle of being alive. Most of us, we fail in that. Most of us take things for granted. So many things we take for granted. And we have these feelings that we need something more here, or we need something better, bigger. And we keep thinking that it's out there, that our feeling of emptiness and our feeling of discontent is all about not having what I really need from the world. That's not it at all. That feeling of discontent is with us as long as we are not embracing our true nature of God, which is love. And as I said, it isn't even a matter of going to find some charitable work that you can do, or some place where you can help something or someone, or even help the planet. It's not about that. It may come your way to be part of that, but the fact is, as you practice carrying the presence of God as love in your awareness, wherever you go, you are bringing that love into the collective consciousness of humanity. And so that is why we have our spiritual practices, because we have been conditioned by life in the outer-directed, illusion-driven, self-serving world to seek for that peace and comfort in the material definition of life. And it cannot be found there, will never be found there. And it's surprising that we don't grasp that, because there are so many publicized stories about human beings who have gained seeming everything. I mean, they have money, they have popularity, they have physical, good health for some, and good looks, etc. And yet they wind up in drug rehabilitation centers or alcoholic rehabilitation centers. And some of them never find a working friendship with anyone else. Their self-centeredness has carried them to such isolation. They can't share in any type of relationship. And if we recognize that, we recognize the law of life. That it is designed in such a way that we should come to the realization that only love can heal us. Divine love only can heal us. In fact, the only attracting, healing power in life is love. So, when you get to that place in your life, and you may have gotten there quite a number of times, but when you get to that place where you are feeling despondent, discontented, and you want to feel better, then maybe what you have to do is you have to seek somewhere, somehow, to get yourself into that state of consciousness, which is the love of God. And that's what the practice of unity is all about. We can check in on ourselves, for we all have experienced our share of suffering. And even beyond that, we have witnessed in the lives around us more suffering. But in doing so, we must know that it has a purpose, and that purpose is to move us more directly into that consciousness that will free us and heal us and bring us into our divine awareness. And we know whenever we feel overtaken or overwhelmed by suffering, that it's not a question of that we need more from the world. It's a question that we need to check in. We need to have a holy pause. We need to remember our divine calling, which is the will of God. And that we need to remember to be still, because the mind that is growing up or has grown up in this outer-directed, materialistic definition of life, that mind never stops thinking about ways to gain personal advantage. And so we're not open enough to be able to feel the presence of God. That's why spiritual practice is necessary, so that we do open up and feel the presence of God and recognize something miraculous. That when we feel the presence of God as love, we feel a happiness that is no longer contingent upon the material conditions of the world. While everything else we had done up until this point where we're practicing the presence had to do with gaining something more, better, bigger, brighter from the world, the mind never stops in that process, always calculating, evaluating, and in quite often doing things that are not really in keeping with kindness, consideration, and love. But in any case, when we recognize that, it's not the world that we should continue to look to, but our own spiritual practice of meditation, the holy pause, until we feel that presence again. That brings us joy and peace. And we can learn through practice to carry that presence of joy and peace, our alignment with the awareness of the God within, the love within. We can carry that with us into everything we do in the world. And that's what enlightenment is all about. Carrying love, healing suffering, whatever it appears on our path, if we can. But even if we can't do anything physical about it, we can always carry that prayerful love and feel that blessed love and send that blessed love out. A Course in Miracles never stops reminding us about how important it is to be still. That is, to take a period of time every day, maybe two every day, to quiet the mind. Because it's only in doing that that we can make this transition into the enlightened awareness. And we can share in the joy and peace in every moment. So it speaks to it in this way in the old text on page 533, and in the new text on page 575. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. In conflict there can be no answer and no resolution, for its purpose is to make no resolution possible, and to ensure no answer will be plain. Yet if God gave an answer, there must be a way in which your problems are resolved, for what he wills already has been done. Thus it must be that time is not involved and every problem can be answered now. Yet it must also be that in your state of mind, solution is impossible. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. Such is the holy instant. I'll read that again. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. In conflict, there can be no answer and no resolution, for its purpose is to make no resolution possible and to ensure no answer will be plain. That is, by the way, the purpose of the illusionary concept that we refer to as the ego. It plays against harmony. It plays against peace. It plays against love. And it plays against happiness. And people think that without the ego, all would be chaos. But the truth is, without the ego, all would be love. I'll finish this. Yet if God gave an answer, there must be a way in which your problems are resolved. For what he wills already has been done. Thus it must be that time is not involved, and every problem can be answered now. Yet it must also be that in your state of mind, solution is impossible. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. Such is the holy instant. The holy instant, as defined in A Course in Miracles, goes like this. The holy instant is this instant, and every instant. The one you want it to be, it is. The one you would not have it be is lost to you. Beyond the past and the future, where you will not find it, it exists in perfect momentariness, waiting. And all one has to do is choose. So, the holy instant is this instant and every instant. And if you don't feel the presence within it, you need to pause. You need to reflect. You need to realize that we are here in every moment by divine appointment, that we should carry the consciousness of God with us into every moment. And that means releasing this illusionary concept of life that has led us in conflicts throughout our lives. Are you ready to just become a divine emissary of the living, present God? It's interesting to note, I'll give you this example. There's a beautiful soul that many years ago decided that she wanted to just be in the awareness of God as love. And this soul was offered the inheritance of her husband who passed on, well over $500,000. And instead of taking it and living life lavishly as one could, supposedly with that much money, she gave it to Unity. And instead, she lives the life of a sadhu, Sadhu is an Eastern term that refers to one who has renounced the world and merely lives in the service of God. And she is a present-day sadhu. And she allows that divine intelligence and love to lead her moment to wherever it is she needs to be. This is a true story. And that person is sitting in this congregation right now, but is leaving us tomorrow. So we are going to take some time to meditate, which is to simply quiet the mind. You know, the mind is filled with all the stuff during the day. In meditation, we simply quiet it down. We take a mantra, we read some spiritual material, we listen to some spiritual music, and it allows us to facilitate our meditation, whereas we still the mind from its incessant conditioning of world seeking. The presence, this refined presence, enters into our awareness. So we're going to do that together now. We'll begin by listening to this crystal bowl. Just rest in the moment, allowing yourself to flow with the tone of this bowl. Being here, accepting the light and the love that is within us and all around us. We can gently focus the awareness on this mantra: God is love. Love is life. I am God's life. I am. I am. God is love. Love is life. I am God's life. I am. I am. God is love. Love is life. I am God's life. I am. I am. I am love. As we go forth from this meditation to those places we occupy in time and space, let us take a moment now, before we go forth, and share prayer together for those whose names have been submitted to our prayer list. As Norma calls the name, you can just let the divine thought continue as love within you to embrace that name.
Uter Behagen, Dean and Patsy, God, please plant an eternal source of love on earth. Joel Goodman, Mishi Seabury, Patrick Hun, all of the precious animals, Sandy Chamberlain, Adawab, Zolita Grant, Tim Spahn, Dan Spahn, Sandy, Mitchie, Misa, Marcy, Jonathan R., Bill and Janet, Catherine Ochovi, Nathan, Marie, Alex Sarah, Laura, Tom, Jim's Health, Eva, Graham, Perry, Jeremy, Kyle, Danielle, Walker, Holly and Celeste, all Timothy's clients, William and family, Danny, Kaya, Belle, Tara, Jimmy S., Sandy Bigtree, Grace Fletcher Long, Daniel Rivard, Susan Shadle, blessings to Central Eurozone, Tim Spahn, Angie, Teresa Rodriguez. And you can call out a name at this time if you would like to do so.
D. Matthew and family, S. Casey and family, S. Daniel and family, Steve Taylor, Brian McKibben, Brad Boland,
You see this healing light surrounding this prayer box and all the people's names that have been submitted throughout the year. We see them healed, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
As we go forth now from this meditation, let us go forth with a greater determination to be awake in the process of living and realizing our true nature. For this opportunity in every moment, we give thanks. And to this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. And we take this time now to bring to mind that financial gift we'd like to make to Unity of Boulder. Those of you watching live stream can scroll down on our website to the donate flag and press that. Everyone here can bring their donations into their hands, and let's bless them with this offering prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And so it is.
There is so much love around us. If we just open up our heart, it's waiting to come in. It's waiting to come in. There is so much love around us. If we just open up our hearts, it's waiting to come in. It's waiting, coming in right now. Right now. Right now.
Join me now, please. We dedicate this tithe to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth and to the victory of the Spirit of truth. To this we say, Amen. For those of you who would like to stay and chat, you can go through these doors to your left into the bookstore. We have tea and cookies there. And on Sunday, we'll have our usual 9 a.m. service and 11 a.m. with Tisha officiating at the 11 a.m. service.
And the bookstore is open. We have such incredible gifts there, and also any book you could possibly imagine on spirituality. So,
to everyone, have a good night.